Charles Beaumont returned to the Twilight Zone with The Jungle. This one is all about suspense, tension, and quiet moments that turn deadly without warning. It's not as well known as some of his other scripts, but it's got a lot going on for it on multiple levels, and turned out as an atmospheric tour de force. Alan Richards and his wife Doris have just come back home from Africa. Alan was on a business trip there to set up a hydroelectric dam, but the natives in the area were opposed to its construction. Doris was given several items by a local shaman to keep her and her husband safe from an apparent curse put upon them by the land. She forces Alan, through his objections, to take one of them with him to work. Upset by his wife's delusions, Alan goes to leave for the day and discovers a dead goat outside his door. Still, Mr. Richards dismisses any talk of voodoo as nonsense. When he accidentally leaves his protective amulet, a lion's tooth, behind at a closed bar that night, more strange things start happening. His car doesn't work, and he's left stranded on an eerily empty New York City street. Soon, sounds of the African jungle permeate his ears. These sounds accompany other odd noises and movements seen only out of the corner of his eye. He wanders the barren streets, trying to evade the imperceptible dangers, attempting to make it back home to his wife in their safe apartment. Beaumont originally wrote The Jungle as a short story that was published in 1954. Twilight Zone was interested in developing it into an episode, but the short story was actually set in Africa, and the production team couldn't pull it off on their budget. Beaumont pitched a few ways to alter the setting and ultimately went with New York City as the primary location. Thus, his first episode of Season 3 was finally set. William F. Claxton came back to the series for the first time since Season 1's The Last Flight. He directed this installment well, as the ambience and sense of anxiety dominate everything. There are a few sets used for different scenes, but the star attraction was MGM's city block backlot. As it has in other episodes, such as What You Need and One for the Angels, it looks fantastic. But this may even trump those other shows in looks because of just how much of the backlot they actually used. This very much felt like a fully realized urban area, as the Alan character traversed the streets, back alleys, church and business exteriors, and a whole separate park section. They even have him jump in a cab that's actually being driven on the streets on set. That went very far with me, since the effort was made not to use rear projection for the outside like they normally would. The audience is taken with this guy on his fight to get home, and the uncanny visuals are a huge part of that. I mean, there are some phenomenal shots here. Wind, moving shadows, creepy lighting, they all aid the wild sounds Alan is hearing to create the total package. John Denner was also a returning presence, leading the piece on screen. Last appearing way back in The Lonely, it was great to see him again. His reactions are pitch perfect, as he's constantly trying to convince himself everything is okay, only to hear more strange noises on his way home. His delivery, as a man who thinks this curse is all hogwash, works great too.
My wife carries a lion's tooth, the president of the company carries a rabbit's, but it's all the same thing. It's all the same rotten disease.
One of my favorite scenes in the whole thing happens after Alan catches that ride from the cabbie. They stop at a light, but after it turns green, the cabbie doesn't move.
The light's green.
From the slow pace of that scene to the horrifying reveal and lack of music, it's perfectly done. A similar sequence has Alan scared by a witch doctor mannequin that he mistakes as real for a moment. If you look closely, you can see the uncredited actor widen his eyes on a close-up, but it's all in question because they have the light and the costume display flashing. Brilliant idea. This is where a beggar shows up, and Alan offers $10 to have the man walk home with him. After hearing the sounds of the jungle again, Alan turns around to see the beggar has vanished. Great execution on that as well. They really hit this one out of the park from behind the camera. After the cabbie that was driving him drops dead out of nowhere and the beggar he ran into disappears into thin air, Alan is on his own. He tries to keep it cool, thinking all the sounds of the jungle are just in his head, but it gets to a point that starts driving him crazy. He finally makes it back to the apartment building and cowers in fear as the noises intensify. All of a sudden, they stop, leaving Mr. Richards with a sense of relief. He pours himself a calming beverage inside his room, but an animalistic growl sees he never takes a sip. Frightened, he opens his bedroom door to see a live lion on his bed. Doris lies dead next to it, as the beast hops off the mattress and jumps for Alan. Roaring and screaming can be heard off screen, ending this story on the Richards' dread made flesh. That finish completes an impeccable build. Seeing the wife's dead body leading to the lion jumping over the camera and the vile sounds we hear can stick with you. Beaumont was always great at crafting dark stories that hit a nerve and left an impression on you. This was no different. You can make an argument that this fed into a negative stereotype, but the episode is handled in a way where, outside of the mannequin, only the dark magic itself is focused on. It's about what we don't see, which is effectively terrifying. The cast is great, the visuals are outstanding, and the sound and absence of music are the right stylistic choice. The Jungle gives us a unique atmosphere that is among the best pure suspense episodes of the show. Watch it for the first time or view it again to be transported to a place so wild it can only reside in the Twilight Zone.